Hi, welcome to this onmaths prediction for the Edexcel Paper 3 Foundation Tier Maths GCSE for November 2020. Enjoy! Hi, and welcome to this onmaths prediction for the last paper. So, been a very long journey so far, going through the first two papers. And this is the final one. So you know the drill by now. You can click this link here and it will take you straight through to onmaths.com where you can try this paper online for free. As you know, every time you do it, it gives you a brand new paper with brand new numbers. So you're not just learning answers. In fact, there's some questions that are almost new questions each time. So it's really good for making sure that you get a grade at the start of really hard work. Do your really hard work, do all your revision, and then you can do basically the same paper at the end to see how much you've improved. So it's a really useful tool. And as I say with all our predictions, make sure you do the work. Yes, these are based on historical data from this exam board. Yes, these are pretty accurate, but they're not going to be 100% accurate. So make sure you do the work, whether you go to onmaths.com to revise or mathseffect.co.uk to revise. Wherever you go, make sure you do the work first. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy it and thank you very much. When we're asked to write a number in figures, it just means as numbers. So we've got 5,026. We need a 0 there as a placeholder. So you're just going to write 5026, 5026. Next question says, write down the value of 8. Now, if we remember, and let's just write the number a little bit bigger, this is our units column, this is our tenths column, and this is our hundredths column. So the value of the 8 is 8 hundredths. We can write that as a fraction, 8 hundredths. And that's the answer. Question C, write down 655 correct to the nearest 10. Okay, so 655, if we just do a quick number line, 655, the next 10 up is 660, and the next one down is 650. So those are the two it can round to. This 655 is bang on halfway, and if they are halfway, they round upwards. So the answer is 660. I'll draw that properly. If it was any less, if it was 654, it would round down. So if the last number, if that number there is 5 or more, it will round up. You will need to be familiar with the names of three-dimensional shapes. So the one we have here is a triangular based prism. So a prism is a shape that you can cut anywhere along one of the axes, so anywhere along here, and it would look exactly the same. It would look like a triangle. The first bit of this, triangular based, is just the name of the shape at the end, the name of the shape at the end of the prism. So you can have a hexagonal based prism or anything like that. It says write down the number of faces. So the faces we can see, well, the face we can see here is a triangle, so that's 1. Then we've got 1 along here, which is a rectangle. So we've got 2 that we can see, but there is also going to be a third one round here, which is also going to be a rectangle, a fourth one at the bottom, which is going to be a rectangle, and then a fifth one round the back, which is going to be a triangle, just like number 1. So in total there are 5 faces. Try and remember what a face is. A face is something you can lay your hand down flat on. An edge is something that you can run your finger along, so that's an edge there. And vertices, or vertex, is something that if you put your finger on, it would be pointy. So there are going to be 6 vertices. So the first thing to look at in this question is how many sides has the spinner got? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 equally sized, equally spaced out sides of that spinner. So any one of those colours is going to be a quarter chance. So let's have a look. What letter on the probability line represents a probability the spinner will land on a yellow? So there is one yellow on that spinner, and so therefore it's going to be a quarter chance. So if you have a look at how many notches this number line has, well, we don't count the first one, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 notches. So each one of those notches is going to be a quarter. So 1/4 will be at B. Which letter represents probability of landing on a red? So we have 2 reds there. So that's going to be 2/4. So we've got 1/4 and 2/4 would be at C. Now 2/4 is the same as a half, which is what the 0.5 there is. It's just a half. What letter on the probability line represents the probability it will land on a blue? Well, there aren't any blues on there. So however many times you spin it, it will never land on a blue. And in probability, we mark that with a 0. So it's going to be A. So we're given function machines for this question. And it says, what is the output when the input's 24? So the input's 24. And the first thing that's going to happen to it is it's going to divide by 2. So we're going to halve it. So that's going to make it 12. Then it says we're going to add 6. So when we add 6 to 12, we get 18. So the output is 18. Next question says below is a different number machine. It says when the input is 20, the output is 56. So let's follow through on the input. So the input's 20, we go take away 6, so that's going to give us 14. Now we've got to then think, right, how do I get from 14 to 56? Now, as it stands, there are multiple ways of doing this. If you do this on onmaths.com, it has a drop-down box and it only lets you select one of the options. So you can add a number to 14 to get to 56, and for this question that would be full marks, that would be absolutely fine. Or you can times it by 4, and times by 4 is the one I'm going to go for. So I'm going to complete the number machine by saying times 4. Okay, so in this question we see that a square has an area of 121 centimeters squared, and we're asked for the perimeter of the square. So the first thing I would do is do a quick little diagram of this square. And we know that the area is 121 centimeters squared. Okay, so I know it's a square, so therefore the width, or the base and the height will be exactly the same. Okay, and I know to find area, I do this one times this one. So I know that x times x, or x squared, equals 121. And if I put my lines in, then I can square root both sides. And so x is 11. So I know that 11 times 11 is 121. Now the temptation is to think, right, I've got the answer 11, but it's asked for the perimeter of the square. So I know perimeter is the distance around the square, and each side is 11. So it's 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 11, or 11 times 4, which is the perimeter, which is 44. So the answer is 44 centimeters. Okay, so for this question we're asked to construct a pie chart from the table. We've got a number of frequencies. Now the first thing to do is work out how many frequencies we've got in total. So first calculation I'll make is adding up all the frequencies, and that calculator tells me is 24. Okay, now the problem we have is a circle has to add up to 360. And at the moment, all of our frequencies add up to 24. So we've got to find out what we're going to multiply all these frequencies by to get them to add up to 360. We do that really simply by doing the calculation 360 divided by whatever the total of the frequencies are. So 360 divided by 24 on the calculator equals 15. So this 15 here, if we multiply all three of our numbers by 15, we will get the amount of degrees we need each colour to be. So I'm going to add an extra column here and say angle. And I'm going to do 14 times 15. And it's 210 degrees. 7 times 15 is 105 degrees. And 3 times 15 is 45 degrees. Now let's just check this. Let's add them up. 210 plus 105 plus 45 equals 360. And then you need to plot it onto the pie chart. Now, I don't have a protractor on this, so I can't physically do it. And to be honest, it's much more helpful to physically print this out, do it on a piece of paper, and get someone to help you use the protractor if you're not 100% sure. That 210, for instance, what I would do is probably draw a straight line down here, like a mini sort of working out line, and do 210 take away 180, which is 30, and do sort of 30 extra degrees, which is going to roughly be there. And don't forget to label them, so that would be red. 105 is just over 90, and I'm just doing this roughly. I'm not even going to use a straight line to show that it's not accurate, and then label that blue, and then check that you've got 45 left over, and hopefully you do, and then label that other. So in this question we're asked to find the percentage decrease, and whenever we're asked to find the percentage increase or decrease, and this time we're doing a percentage decrease, the formula is just the change over the original times by 100. So to work out the change here, it's going to be the initial amount take away the final amount on this one, because it's going down and we don't want to have a negative, over the original. Now it says it decreases from this amount to this amount, so the original is going to be the 10,488 and then times by 100. So I'm going to do that on the calculator. So fraction button, 10,488 minus 10,254 over 10,488, and then outside the fraction times by 100, and I get the answer 2.2311 blah blah blah. So it's 2 decimal places, it's going to be 2.23. So the first thing to do with this question is realise that we're looking for possible menu choices, and realise that actually instead of writing sushi and burger, we can just write S and B, and that's normally absolutely fine unless the question asks specifically to write down the words. So the way to start this is just look at sushi first and go through the combinations with sushi. So we can have sushi and ice cream. We can have sushi and strawberries, or we can have sushi and peaches. Now that's it for sushi. So I've done sushi, and now I'm going to focus on burger. So we can have burger and ice cream, we can have burger and strawberries, and we can have burger and peaches. And if you do it systematically like that, you know you haven't missed any. Okay, so the first thing to realise with this question is what perimeter means. Perimeter is the distance around a shape. Now, we've got a lot of x's and numbers, but it does say it wants an expression for the perimeter. So we're not looking for a number as an answer, we're looking for an expression, so letters and numbers. Okay, so there are a few sides missing, so I'm going to try and find out this side first. And to get this side, we're going to add the 5x here with the x there. So 5x plus x is 6x. So we've got that one. Now, if the total distance across is 7x plus 16, and the bit we know is 6x plus 11, then the bit we don't know we'll have to add up together to make the 7x plus 16. So we need another x and we need another 5. Okay, we've labelled all the sides. So what I'm going to do is pick a point on the shape, and I'm just going to start walking around the shape and writing down everything as I go. So perimeter equals, and we've got 6x plus 11 plus 5x plus x plus 5 plus 6x plus 7x plus 16 plus x. So we've got quite a lengthy string of algebra there. Now we'll always need to simplify this. Okay, so if I collect the x's first, so we've got a 6x plus a 5x plus an x plus 6x plus 7x plus an x, which is going to be 26x. Okay, let's do the numbers next. So we've got 11 plus 5 plus 16, which is going to be 32. Okay, so the perimeter is going to be 26x plus 32. Now, a different way I could have done this is just focused on this one and doubled them. Now, let's have a look and see how that works. If this length here is 6x, then these two here would add together to make 6x. So in total, we have 12x going down. All the ones going across is going to be double this one. So it's all going to add together to make 14x plus 32. And then if you add those together, that would also give us the 26x plus 32. Okay, so this question seems quite simple, but it's not as simple as it looks. So we've got meters over seconds, or meters per second, and we've got kilometers per hour. Now, to get from meters to kilometers, we divide by 1,000, and that's nice and easy. Okay, so if we had 1,000 meters, that would be 1 kilometer. Now, to get from seconds to hours, we divide by 60 to work out how many minutes it is, then we divide by 60 again. So in total, we divide by 3,600. But because it's at the bottom of the fraction, divisions turn into times. Okay, so we'd actually end up timesing it by 3,600 because it's at the bottom of the fraction. All right, so every time we divide the bottom of the fraction by a number, we're technically timesing the whole fraction by a number as well. So we get the 95, and we're going to divide it by 1,000, then times it by 3,600, and you can just use your calculator. So 95 divided by 1,000 times 3,600, and we get the answer of 342 kilometers per hour. Now, it would be alarming if 95 meters per second, which is pretty quick, but if that ended up being 300 million blah 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 kilometers per hour, which is just unreasonably large number. So meters to second to kilometers per hour should be kind of in the same ballpark. So 95 to 342, the numbers are in kind of the same region of scale. Instead of going straight to percentages for this question, I would first of all get it as a fraction. So it says there's 15 students who are female and 31 altogether. So the fraction is going to be 15 over 31. And to simply convert between fractions and percentages, all you need to do is times by 100. And percent means per 100, so it's always going to be times by 100, and that'll always give you a percentage. So I'm going to get my calculator out. Now I can write that as a fraction, or I could do 15 divided by 31. It gives you the same answer. So 15 over 31 times by 100. And it gives me a fraction, so I'm going to press S to D. And it's 48.3 3870 blah blah blah, and it says give it to the nearest percent. So that's a 3, so it's not going to move that 8 up to a 9, so it's just 48%. Okay, so this ratio looks quite scary because it's big numbers, but the first thing to do on this is just divide both sides by 100. Get rid of 2 of the zeros on both sides, and that looks a lot nicer now. Now they're both even, so I can halve both of them. So I get 5, and half of 30 is 15, half of 4 is 2, so that's going to be 17. Now 5 and 17 are both prime numbers, so I don't think there's 17 isn't in the 5 times table, and 5 and 17 there's not going to be any more numbers I can pick. So my answer is going to be 5 to 17. Okay, so we're asked to do a front elevation in this shape. Now, it's important to realise with front elevations or side elevations or even plans, you don't do any 3D, you literally draw in 2D. If you try and do any 3D diagonal lines, you'll instantly lose marks, because when you're asked to do an elevation, it means you're directly straight onto that shape, so you won't see any 3D sort of lines coming off it. So when we're standing where the arrow is with the front, all we can see is this bit here. That's the only thing we can see. So it will look like this. Now, I'm not able to draw accurately here, but the width of it will be the same width as at the back here, so it would be 4 centimeters. So I draw it as 4 centimeters. The height of it would be the same height as this, so it would be 6 centimeters. So I draw a rectangle, perfect rectangle, which is 4 centimeters wide and 6 centimeters tall, and nothing else. You won't be able to see anything else. So all of this you wouldn't be able to see, and neither would you be able to see any of this. Okay, so we've got £156 in the bank account, which is earning simple interest at 41.3% per annum. Now, per annum just means per year, so it's 3 years it's sitting in there. Now, the important point to highlight on this is the fact that it is simple interest. Now, simple interest means you calculate the percentage once, and then it's the same amount every single year. So the first and most important thing that we do is calculate 41.3% of 156. Now, percent just means per 100. So on my calculator, I'm going to do 41.3 divided by 100 and then times it by 156. And that's how to work out 41.3% of 156. So 41.3 over or divided by 100 times by 156. When I do that, I get 64.428. So this is our interest, and it's useful to show the examiner what you're doing. So we want to then do 3 years interest. Now, remember what I said about simple interest, that you get the same amount every single year. So all I need to do is times this by 3. And it gives me, so I'm going to write this down for the examiner, 28 times 3, and it gives me 193.284. And you don't want to round right up until the end, so don't round anything until your answer. Okay, now, so it says how much money is in the account. So money in account. So if the interest is 193, we just do 156 plus £193.284. Okay, so I'm just going to add 156 onto that value, and I get 349.284. Now with money, we always round to 2 decimal places, so it's going to be 349.28 because that 4 is less than 5. Okay, there's more than one way to expand and simplify a single bracket. You're essentially doing the same thing, but some of you might want to draw grids or do it in a different way. I always just use smiles and rainbows, so I just create a smile between the 2 and the 3x, and a rainbow between the 2 and the 6, and put a little time sign there to remind me to times it. Just put a notch through the bracket. That means we're going to times 2 and 3x, and 2 times 3 is 6, and then we've got the x there. And 2 times 6 we're going to times together to make 12. Now we've still got the 4x, so I still need to write that down. Then I'm going to collect like terms. Now the like terms we have is the 6x and the plus 4x. So 6x plus 4x is 10x. And then there's nothing that we can do with the 12, so we just leave that. So it's 10x plus 12. Okay, the next one, there's a double smiles and rainbows. We've got one here, put a little time sign there, and we've got one here. So we'll do the first one first. So 8 times 6x, so we do 8 times 6, which is 48, and then we've got the x. Then we do 8 times positive 2, which is 16, so plus 16. Now that's nice and easy. However, the next one's slightly different. The number outside the brackets is not a 3, it's a minus 3. So when we do minus 3 times positive 4x, we're going to get a negative, because a minus times a positive is a negative. Then we do 3 times 4, which is 12, and then we've got the x as well. Now the rainbow is minus 3 times minus 5. 2 minuses times together is a plus. 3 times 5 is 15. Then we look for like terms, so we've got the 48x and the minus 12x, and we've got the plus 16 and the plus 15. So we want to do 48 take away 12, or 48x take away 12x. So if we take away 2, it's 6. If we take away 10, it's 36x. Then we want to do 16 plus 15. Well, 15 plus 15 is 30, so that's going to be 31. So the answer is going to be 36x plus 31. Now the most common mistakes are for that n bit there, this bit here. Sometimes students will write down negative 15. When numbers are quite small, it's quite easy just to do trial and error to find the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple. But when the numbers are larger, then the way we do it is with product of prime factors. Now this could come up on a paper which has previously had product of prime factors, and this is distinct enough maybe to come up in its own right. So just because product of prime factors have already appeared, this question has already done that bit for you. So how are we going to do it with these large numbers? And 3,675 and 84 are pretty large numbers. Well, the way we do this is with a Venn diagram. Now I'm going to use the space down here to do this, and what I'm going to do is, because I find it easier, I'm just going to write it not in index form. And then when I do my Venn diagram, I can just cross them out when I've done them. So 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. Okay, so let's construct myself a Venn diagram. Okay, now I'm not very good at drawing circles, but I'm going to try my best here. I'm going to try and make the circles as big as possible. So we've got 3,675. I'm just labelling which circle is which, and this is 84. And to do the Venn diagram, we're just going to go through the numbers and write out which ones overlap and which ones don't. So if I have a look at the 84 first, we've got a 2 there. Well, 2 doesn't go into 3,675, so that 2 is going to be on its own there, and this 2 here is going to be on its own. Okay, I think that's it. So the next one, now this 3 appears in both lists, so this 3 goes in the middle. The 5 here only appears in 3,675, and same with this one. And then we've got 1 7 that appears in both lists, but we've got another 7 in the 3,675 list. So that's my completed Venn diagram. Now to answer question A, to find the highest common factor, all you need to do is multiply the overlapping ones together. So the highest common factor is 21, and that's it. Here we are, it's that easy. Now, to find the lowest common multiple, which is question B, what you need to do is times all of them together, every single one. Now you might wonder, well hang on, surely that's just going to give us 3,675 times 84, so why couldn't I just do that? Well, the overlapping ones we're only going to write once, so the 3 and the 7 in the middle, we're only writing them once. So we would, if we did 3,675 times 84, we would be timesing by 3 and then timesing by 7 again. So we've already done the middle bit, so we've already done the 21 in the middle, and I need to do the ones around the side. So we've got 5 times 5 times 7 times 2 times 2. Now on the non-calculator paper, it might be a bit more generous with the numbers. This one is probably going to be more on the calculator paper, although there are ways that you can do this. For instance, I could pair the 5s and the 2s up, and that would make 10. The 5 and the 2 there would make another 10, so we've got 100. So all we need to do is 21 times 7 and then put 2 zeros in the end of it. 21 times 7 is 147, so put 2 zeros at the end of it. If it's on the calculator paper, you just literally use your calculator to times them out. And so that's 14,700. Well, the chances of us finding that with trial and error are close to impossible, so you can see why this method is so good. Okay, so we're asked to find the single transformation that goes from A to B. Okay, so first things first, I asked myself a number of questions here. Question number 1, has it been mirrored? No, not really. So it's not a reflection. Has it just moved? Well, it has moved, but it hasn't just moved. It's not the same shape, so it's not a translation. Has it been flipped over? Well, no, it's the same way up, so it's not a rotation. The last question is, has it changed size? Well, yes, it has. So it's an enlargement. Now, with enlargement, and I can put that into my answer first of all, so it is an enlargement. With enlargement, I need to work out what the scale factor is. So if I have a look at the bottom, that's 1 square across on A, and it becomes 2 squares across on B. So what do I times 1 by to get to 2? Or I could do 2 divided by 1. So the 1 on the second shape divided by the 1 on the first shape. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So we know that the scale factor is 2. Now, last thing we need to do is the centre of enlargement. And to do that, you get a ruler and you join up all of the points but carry them on. So I'm joining up the bottom left ones, I'm joining up the bottom right ones, and I'm joining up the top left ones. So I'm just joining all of these up, and you notice that they all cross over at this point here, and that's called our centre of enlargement. So let's just check where that is. Okay, so the centre of enlargement is 3 minus 4. And you need all 3 of those things. Sometimes it's only 2 marks, and you don't always get a mark for saying enlargement. However, you can't get full marks unless you say enlargement. So make sure you have the word enlargement and the scale factor to guarantee that you get that first mark. And then the second mark or the third mark will be for the centre of enlargement. Okay, so this question gives us some instructions underneath and a Venn diagram to fill out. So it says there's 31 people altogether. So the 4 numbers we're trying to find, which is signified with the A, B, C and D, have to add together to make 31. 22 have a cat. Now at the moment we can't fill anything in because the cat is split between A and B. 16 people have a dog. Again, we can't fill out anything yet because the dog is split between B and C. But this piece of information here will help us start. So it says 12 had a cat but not a dog. So this is going to be 12 here. The next one we can now fill out is this one. 22 had a cat. Well, if 12 didn't have a dog, that means that 10 must have had a dog as well to make that add up to 22. Now we can then fill out this one, which says 16 had a dog. Well, if 10 of them also had a cat, that leaves 6 people who've just had a dog. Now, if we add those up all together, then that's going to give us, was it 28? And it says that there's 31 people in total. So if we've used up 28 of the people within the 2 circles, the cat and the dog circles, that means we've got 3 people left over outside. So you'll need a calculator for this question. The different calculators do things slightly different, but by far the most common calculator, and if you haven't got one, I would recommend them, are the Casio calculators. Mine has a shiny solar panel on the top, but you don't need that. The average battery life lasts way longer than you'll ever need the calculator. So the first button I would press, and there's different ways of doing this question, is the button to get the fraction, which on the Casios looks like this. And that will make a fraction appear on your calculator. Now, some of the older ones, the fraction looks a bit weird. It involves like a symbol like this. And actually on the new ones it can, but you need to change the settings if it does that. It should open up, it should look something like this, like a box and then another box, and there should be a cursor blinking in this box. Okay, so we want to fill in this top box first, since it's already flashing. So 76.8 plus 81.9. Okay, and so to shift downwards on the Casio calculators, there's a sort of cursor, like a cursor stick, a direction button thing. It's the big blue button beneath the screen on most of the calculators, and you just push the down to go to the denominator of the fraction. And then we need to fill in this bit here, so 0.19, and then to get the squared button, it's on like that. So you just press that, and it looks exactly as it does in the question on the screen, so you know you've got it right. So you press the equals, and my one comes up with 4396.121884. Now, it might be tempting to try and round that, but it says it wants all the figures, so just put them all in. Now, if your calculator is set to a mode which it's going to show even more numbers, then normally six digits after the decimal point is more than enough. They won't require you to go to 100 or 200 decimal places. On this question, that's actually an exact amount. Okay, so write down correct to 2 significant figures. Now, to do 2 significant figures, we start counting at the start of the number. So I'm going to do a red line where you need to start counting. And you just count 1, 2 numbers. So the blue line is where I've stopped counting. Now, all of these numbers here are going to be reset to 0. They're going to go away. Well, not quite. Let's come to that later. Now, this number here, the 9, is what we call a decider number. Now, that number is going to go. That 9 is gone. Okay? But before it goes, we need to see whether that is 5 or more or 4 or less. If it's 5 or more, it pushes that 3 up to a 4. So the answer will be 4, and then you'd think, oh, okay, that's it, rounded, and you'd write that in the answer column. But when I said they disappear, they don't quite disappear. All the numbers above the green line that I've just drawn reset to 0. They turn to 0. Now, if you think about it, if I don't know what would have a decimal place, but if you have a number 4,396.121884 written down, and someone says, "Can you tell me roughly how much that is?" Then if you say the answer of 44, that's not roughly 44. It's nowhere near 44. So the 9 and the 6 will turn to 0. And actually the other numbers do too. But these numbers here are not changing the number at all. These 2 zeros here will make that 4,400 instead of just 44. The other numbers after decimal point, we might as well get rid of them. So the answer is 4,400. Okay, because we don't need to show these numbers. Now, the reason students make this mistake is they're so used to decimal places. Now, decimal places, you always remove them because they're always after the decimal point. But with significant figures, they need to turn to zeros. Okay, so this question is a little bit more complicated than it first seems. So we've got Adrian, Ben, and Charlie, and they share some sweets in the ratio of 6 to 3 to 8. And it says that Charlie got 12 more sweets than Adrian. Well, first of all, let's have a look and see how many more parts that Charlie... Ooh. Always cross my L's for some reason. Charlie got more than Adrian. Okay, so he got 8 take away 6 is 2. So he got 2 more parts. And so let's have a look and see what one part is worth. So those 2 parts equates to 12 more sweets. So we do 12 divided by 2, 6. So each part is worth 6 sweets. And it says work out the total amount of sweets. So we need to work out how many parts there are in total. So we do 6 plus 3 plus 8. Now I know 6 plus 8 is 14, plus 3 is 17. So we've got 17 parts in total. Each of them is worth 6 sweets. So to work out the amount of sweets, we do 17 times 6. Now we could do 7 times 6, which is 42, 10 times 6, which is 60. So add the 2 together, it's 102. So there are 102 sweets altogether. Okay, the way you solve these is exactly the same as where you solve an equation. It's just you've got an inequality sign here. So we're going to put our lines in, probably way too long. And we're going to try and get x on its own. So the first thing we're going to do is take away 10 from both sides. So we've got 7x, and then this time, don't forget, don't put an equal sign. You must do this inequality sign. And 77, and then we're going to divide 7 both sides. So we've got x is greater than or equal to 11. Now it's really, really tempting. Ooh, and there we go, I've already made a mistake. It's really, really tempting to put an equal sign in there. But there have been some exams in the past that you get 0 marks, even if it's a 3-mark question, for putting an equal sign. So remember to put the same sign. So to work out the volume of a prism, we work out the area of the cross-section and we times it by how 3D the shape is, which we call the length. So we're going to work out first of all the cross-section area. Now the cross-section is a triangle. So the formula for a triangle for area is half times base times height. So the base of it is 22 and the height of it is 14. So on my calculator I'm going to do 0.5 times 22 times 14, which is 154. And be careful, the most common mistake here is not to halve it. So with the triangle we have to halve it. And so the volume is the area of that triangle times how 3D it is, so 15. As I said, that's called the length. So times that by 15 and we get 2,310. So my answer is 2,310 centimeters cubed. Now a lot of people look at the word estimate and think, oh, let's just take a guess at it. The reason we're estimating is because of the first step that we have to do to answer this question. It doesn't mean that just have a quick punt and guess at it. With this question you won't be able to guess it correctly, or it'd be very, very unlikely. So we approach this the same as if it wasn't a group. However, we do have a group, so we've got to do a step first. This means that we've got a value somewhere between 0 and 4, including 4 but not including 0. Now the problem is that the first step in this method is to multiply these two numbers together, but you can't times somewhere between 0 and 4 by 14. So what we need to do first is find the midpoint. The reason we pick the midpoint is it's a good number to use to represent that group. If we assumed all those numbers were 0, then it would probably be ridiculously small. If we assumed they were all 4, again it would be too high. So we assume that all those are 2 because it's right in the middle of the group, and chances are that most of them are closer to 2 than 0 or 4. So we find the midpoint of each of the groups, and a way of doing this is just adding the lowest and highest value together and dividing it by 2. Or just having a look. 4 to 8 will be 6, 8 to 12 halfway would be 10, 12 to 16 halfway would be 14, and 16 to 20 halfway would be 18. Then what we do is we get the frequencies and times them by the midpoints. So it's the same as if it wasn't a group now. So we do 14 times 2, which is 28, 6 times 6 is 36, 3 times 10 is 30, and then you can use a calculator for this, so 9 times 14, have an idea of what it's going to be. Hopefully it's 126, which it is, good, and 2 times 18, which is 36. And this is I call this the fx, although in this case we are calling the first one s, so it's the fs column. And then we need to find the sum of the fs column. So we're going to add up 28, 36, 30, 126 and 36 in the calculator, which is 256. And then we're going to sum up the frequencies, which is this column here. So 14 plus 6 plus 3 plus 9 plus 2, which is 34. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the 256, which is all our values added together, and divide it by 34. So 256 divided by 34. And I get the answer of 7.5294 blah blah blah. And to 2 decimal places, that's going to be 7.53. Now, the reason it's an estimate, as I've said before, is that we don't know that all the values in the first group are 2. We are estimating them to all be 2, even though we know that some of them will be 1, some of them will be 3. But chances are it will balance out that it's roughly going to be about 2 in that group, and 6 in the next group, and 10 in the group after. That's where the word estimate comes. The method for doing this is how I've shown it here. I don't believe there's any other methods you can use for this. Now, this seems like a really easy question that you just do 11 divided by 6 and times by 7. The problem that gives us is it basically means if we add a student, it takes longer. Now, the problem is that one looks at this question and thinks it's direct proportion. It's not. It's inverse proportion. So if we have a think about, well, let's label the two things. So we can have hours and students. Now, H is inversely proportional to the amount of students you have. So H equals K, which is our constant, over S. The hours is 11, and the number of students is 6 in our example. So I'm going to put the lines in and times both sides by 6. So it's 66 equals K, or K equals 66. Then when I go back to this equation here, we know what K is, and K is a constant, so it's always going to stay the same. So it's 66 over the amount of students. So for our example, it says that there's 7 students, so H is going to be 66 over 7. So let's type that in, 66 divided by 7, and I get the answer of 9.428 blah blah blah. So it says it wants its 2 decimal places, so it's 9.43. Now, way of checking this is it took 6 students 11 hours, so you'd think with 7 students it would take less time, which it does here. So if you don't know or you forget how to do the inverse proportion, just literally times these two numbers together and then get that answer and divide it by this number here. Okay, the way of doing this question is to do a quick number line. Now we're going to put 130 in the middle. Now it's the nearest 10, so I'm thinking what would the next one down be? Well, if we had slightly less, if we had 128, it would still round to 130. So the next one down that it could have rounded to is 120, and the next one up it could have rounded to is 140. Now to find the intervals, we're going to work out the halfway between the two. So I'm going to work out this one here and this one here. So halfway between 120 and 130 is 125, and halfway between 130 and 140 is 135. Now, it says it wants h for the height, so we're going to put h in the middle. I'm going to put 125 to the left of it, and 135 to the right of it. Now, h could have been, h was greater than, but it could have been 125 as well. So we have a little arrow underneath a little equals underneath the inequality. H was less than 135, but it couldn't be 135, otherwise it would round up to 140, so we don't put the equal sign there. Now this middle bit here, that will always be the same when you're answering this question, when you're asked for the error interval. The letter here might change. It might be fussy and ask you for a letter, or it might not. It might just say, just use any letter. If it says use any letter, X or N or whatever you want to use is acceptable. But the signs here will always look like this for an error interval. Okay, to convert from standard form, you just write the number down, and this here, the power, will tell you where to go. So if the power is positive, then you go to the right. If it's negative, then you jump to the left. Now since it's negative, we're going to jump to the left, and it's -6, so we're going to jump 6 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the decimal point will now be here, and you fill in all of the jumps with zeros. So one of the jumps is used by the 8, but all the other ones we fill in with zeros. And whenever you've got just a decimal point, you need to have something before it, so we put a 0 before it. So the answer will be 0.00000084. That would be the answer. So let's just count. There's 5 zeros and 5 zeros. Okay, to convert to standard form, you write out the number, and you try and put a decimal place in to make the number between 1 and 10, but not including 10. So if I put it in here, that would be 72, so that would not be right. So I need to put it in here. Then you count how many times you had to move the decimal point to get it there. So the decimal point started at the end of the number, and we had to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the rule is that the number has to be between 1 and 10, which this one is. Now, if you had a big number, then the power of 10 will be positive. Now here we did have a big number, so it's going to be +6. On the previous one, we had a small number, 0.00084. I don't know if I said the amount of noughts that were there, and you can see that the power in the question was negative. So negative power of 10 is really small number, positive power of 10, really big number. This does turn up on the calculator paper as well. So if it does, you can actually just type in question A into your calculator and just write down the number it gives you. Now some calculators are smart and do things in standard form, so you might need to do it this method anyway. Okay, so we've got a pair of simultaneous equations here, and we've got a problem because the coefficients of the x and the coefficients of the y are different, so we need either the x is the same or the y is the same. Now looking at this, I could times the bottom by 3 and the top by 8 to get the y's the same, but it looks much easier to get the x's the same. So if I times the top by 3 and times everything at the bottom by 2, then it will get the x's the same. So I'm going to times the top by 3 first, so we get 6x minus 9y equals 36. I'm going to times the bottom one by 2, so we get this 6x, so we have these the same, plus 16y equals minus 14. And be careful to times everything in the equation by 2 and everything in the equation by 3. So with simultaneous equations we work downwards. And the rule of what we're doing is if we have the same signs, we subtract. And if we have different signs, we add. So looking at the 6x's, we have the same signs, they're both positive, so we are going to subtract. Okay, so 6x take away 6x is nothing, which is good because we want to get rid of that. Minus 9y take away 16y. So minus 9y, and we're going to take away 16y. So we're going to end up with minus 25y. And we've got 36 take away minus 14. Now that's going to be the same as a plus. When you have two minuses next to each other, it will be a plus. So that's going to be 50. So I'm going to put my lines down the side. And we're going to divide both sides by minus 25. And you end up with y equals, so that's going to be a minus and it's going to be minus 2. Now if you're not comfortable with doing that, you can switch the signs first. So if you end up with this problem, what you can do is you can just effectively times both sides by minus 1 first. So you've got 25y equals minus 50, and then just divide by 25. So y equals minus 2. Okay, now we need to put that into the equation. So I'm going to pick the top one. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So we've got 2x minus, and then we've got 3 times minus 2 equals 12. So let's put our lines in. So we've got 2x, and that's going to be minus 6, and then the minus will make it a plus 6, equals 12. We're going to take away 6 both sides. 2x equals 6, and we're going to divide both sides by 2. We end up with x equals 3. Now we can put that into the second equation to check that it works. So we've got 9 and then minus 16. 9 take away 16 is minus 7. Now I'm going to be using the multiplier method for this question, but you might have a different method, and if it's working, stick with it. Okay, so to use the multiplier method, we need to work out what we're doing. So we're increasing by 1.6% because it's a savings account, and if your money goes down in a savings account, you wouldn't be happy with it. So to use the multiplier method, you start off with 100%. You do what the percentage, or you add or take away the percentage depending on the question. Here we're adding because it's going up by 1.6%, and we're going to end up with 101.6%. Then you work that out as a multiplier. Now to do that, all you do is you divide by 100, and all you're doing is converting it to a decimal. Multiplier is just a posh way of saying decimal. Okay, this is now our multiplier. Now whenever I times something by this number, the 1.016, it will increase it by 1.6%. So we've got £2,400, and if I just had 1 year, I would times it by the multiplier and it would work out what it is after the second year. But we've got 7 years, so what we could do is times it by 1.016 7 times, but I can't be bothered to do that because we know something better in maths. What we can do instead is do that multiplier to the power of 7, and that's just the same way as just timesing it by 1.016 7 times, and it's a bit easier to do. So 2,400 on the calculator times 1.016, and then I put my power button and I type in 7, and I get the answer 2,682.0520 blah blah blah. Okay, so because it's a money question, it can only have 2 decimal places, so 2682.05. Now the last step is really just to check that that makes sense. Well, we're in a savings account for 7 years. We've put in £2,400, and and we've got out after 7 years 2,682 roughly, so 2,600. So we've made £200. Now the interest rate, the 1.6%, is quite a low interest rate, so we wouldn't expect very much money. So about £200 is about right. So you can always just check your answer to see if it makes sense. If you ended up with less money at the end, then alarm bells are ringing. Okay, so there's quite a few different ways you can do this question. I'm going to find out length CB, and then I'm going to, from that, find out length CE. So this question asks us for length CE. Now CE is the length that's shown at the bottom here. This is CE here. Okay, so that's the one we're trying to find. Now I'm going to first of all find out what CB is. Now what I'm going to do is just label this X. And I realise that it needs to be trigonometry, because this is a rectangle, that's a right angle. So I'll need to use trigonometry for it. So we've got opposite and we've got the hypotenuse. So we're going to use sine. So SOH. So it's going to be sine 68 equals 27 over x. And I'm going to times both sides by x and divide both sides by sine 68. So that gives me x equals 27 over sine 68. And so if I do that on the calculator, 27 over sine 68, and that gives me 29.1204. And I just do a few more decimal places than usual, because it's not an answer and you should never round your working out. If it's asking for one decimal place, I think 4 decimal places should be enough, but I'm going to try and keep it into the calculator if I can. So the next thing I need to do is work out CE. Now I'll need this angle here, which actually I can just take away 68 from 90, because it's a rectangle, the whole thing will be 90 degrees. So I'm just doing 90 take away 68, which is 22, so that's 22 degrees. Now I'm looking for this one, so CE, I'm going to call CE Y, and I've got, so what have I got? I've got the adjacent here, so this is now the adjacent, and I've got the hypotenuse because this is opposite the right angle. So this time I'm going to be using cos, so it's CAH, so cos 22 equals x equals my 29.1204 blah 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 over y. So again, I'm going to times both sides by y and divide both sides by cos 22. So y equals 29.1204 blah 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 over cos 22. Now I kept that in my calculator, so I can just press divided by cos 22. Press equals, and it's 31.4074 blah blah blah. And it says it wants the answer to one decimal place, so it's going to be 31.4. Now, if I lost you a little bit because I went quite quickly through trigonometry, this is a kind of question you do when you're quite happy with trigonometry. There's loads and loads of videos on the site that go through right from the basics of trigonometry. If you want to do these questions completely within the trigonometry triangle, then that's absolutely fine. You'll get the same answer. Okay, so whenever you're finding a stratified sample, you always have the number in the sample and you times it by the fraction of that particular group that you're interested in. So our sample is 15, and we're going to times that by, well, it says the male who went to the log flume. So male who went to the log flume is here, and I think it says in the question there's 131. So it's going to be 31 of the people out of 131. So with the calculator, I'm going to do 15 times fraction button 31 over 131. Now that gives me 3.549 blah blah blah. And the important thing to realise is you can't have half a person, so you will need to round that. And I'm going to round that to 4. Okay, so the important thing to realise first is that this is a part of a full circle. So if I draw the full circle in badly, we've just got a slice of it. Now it asks us for the perimeter. Now there are 3 parts to the perimeter. There's this 7 centimetres here, there's 7 centimetres here, and this what we call an arc here. So we need to work out the arc first. So to work out the length of the arc, we're going to do the full circumference of the circle, which is pi times the diameter. Now the diameter here is going to be 14 because the radius, the distance between the outside of the circle and the centre of the circle, is 7, and the diameter is twice the radius, so that's going to be 14. But that will give us the whole circumference, and we don't want the whole circumference, we want just this 49 degrees of it. So we need to write that as a fraction. So 49, the total in the circle is 360, therefore as a fraction that's going to be 49 over 360, and it's always over 360 because the circle always adds up to 360 degrees. So I'm going to type that into my calculator, pi times 14 times, and I'm going to press the fraction button, 49 over 360. And it gives me the answer of 5.9864 blah 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 blah. I'm going to keep that into my calculator because I haven't answered the question yet, because as I said at the start, to get the perimeter I need to add that 5.9864 blah 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 to the 7 and the other 7, and that will give me the full perimeter. So I'm going to add 7, and it gives me 19.9864 blah 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 blah. So to 2 decimal places, that's going to be 19.99 because that 6 moves that 8 up to a 9.
Well, I hope you found that video useful. If you did, please click like. If you want to see more from us, including the other 2 papers, please click subscribe. We've got loads and loads of stuff on the website, onmaths.com, which you can go to here, which is completely free. But if you feel you're quite far behind in the maths, or you're not happy with the grades you're getting on onmaths.com or other mock papers you have, you can try out our premium service, which is mathseffect.co.uk. With mathseffect.co.uk, it's a small monthly fee, and you can do an annual subscription, but if you only want to do it up until November, which makes sense, you can just pay per month. And what it does is it has the whole of the maths GCSE as a journey, and you go through each topic, mastering it one topic at a time. A lot of the students I talk to say, I really don't know where to start. Like, I keep doing Pythagoras and trigonometry over and over again, and I don't really know what else I don't know. This is a service which just covers everything. It makes sure you master and you are an expert in every topic in maths. So it's worth checking out. Loads of people have joined already, and if you haven't joined, go to the website mathseffect.co.uk or click the link in the description. That will take you straight there and you can check it out. Otherwise, thank you very much. If you want to leave a comment down below of anything you want us to cover, because we're desperate to help anyone who's being caught up in this terrible situation, which is not ideal for anyone, but equally, like, we all understand why it's happened. But if I was having to resit or having to sit for the first time in November, I would feel exactly the same as you are probably feeling. So if you want to leave any comments down below, and we might release some videos just discussing options that you have open, or whatever it might be. Otherwise, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.